All right, we are back. So, this panel is cosplay photography with three of my favorite cosplay photographers. So, I am really excited. I'm going to bring them in. First up is Mr. Carlin Stuart, who has also been instrumental in helping with the behind the scenes team. So, Carlin's pulling double duty. Thank you, Carlin. Oh, you're muted.
Let me fix that. Yeah,
Yes. And behind
it's been
you,
fun. Oh yes, the horde of comics and pulp magazines.
we have decided that Carlin, oh my gosh, I can't talk. This is only my first panel and I
I
already can't talk.
I have been designated as a dragon that hoards books.
The best kind of dragon. The
Yeah,
best kind of dragon. Next up,
better than skulls, right?
exactly. Yay, Carlin. Next up is D of Toy Robot Visual Arts. I am tripping over my words this morning. Welcome, D.
Good morning.
Coffee will save you.
I'm on my second cup of caffeinated tea, and it's still, I got nothing. And then we have Mr. Mark Shafer.
Woohoo!
Welcome, Mark. How are you gentlemen today?
Doing good.
Wonderful.
The fact that we're actually made it through all the technical hoops and stuff and made it onto the panel is testimony of how great this is working. So hopefully it'll go great. I've never done one of these before. So,
well, I'm so glad that you came on. I tried to have you last time around, and there was a schedule conflict because for anyone who doesn't know, I am a cosplayer, but I think you all know this by now. And Mark Shafer is the first photographer I ever worked with. And he taught me how to pose. I didn't know anything. I was an awkward turtle. I'm still an awkward turtle, but I'm less awkward thanks to Mark. So thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
And Carlin, I know you were telling me in the private chat, thank you, that my necklace is backwards. It's not. It says Leap of Faith. It's really hard. This is from Kristen, who's very sweet. She sent this to me as a thank you because we've been collaborating on this. She started, so I brought her in on the celebration, and she started working 6 months ago. As soon as they brought her in after the last one in January, and she's been working her butt off. And yay, Kristen! Yes. And so she deserves so much credit. Like, she's not on screen, so I feel like I'm sorry, I'm taking up your panel, but she deserves so much credit. And she's not on screen because she's having internet issues, but she deserves a lot of credit. She booked all the guests. She's been doing all the promoting. She got us set up. She's amazing. So that said, now to talk to our three amazing photographers. So let's just start with introductions. I'm going to go clockwise. So from what I'm seeing on screen. So Carlin, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us how you got into photography and also specifically cosplay photography? Because obviously that's two different paths.
Well, I mean, photography, I spent more money than I probably ever should have in high school and early college, burning rolls on rolls of film back in those days. And then I didn't start really attending conventions until after I got married. And it was, I literally walked into a comic shop one day and there was a flyer and I'm like, gosh, I really should be going to these things because I'm a geek. And I started going and I'm like, I should really bring my camera. And so, and over time, now we have the advent of digital photography. So it's easy. And I've been dragging a camera around for years and, 20 years of conventions later.
Yes. Yep, that is one of your pictures.
And there's another match that goes with that. Yes. That's the original comic, oversized, that they posed for and recreated the cover for me.
Yeah. Oh, and then I believe that's Ginger.
Yes, that is Ginger when she was probably about 2, maybe 3.
You know, she's getting so grown.
If you look at that face, it's like she's in the moment That is, as far as she's concerned, that is Wonder Woman.
And that's the magic of cosplay.
Oh,
and this is when you and I first met, Carlin.
That would have been probably the first year. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I remember you and I were in line, and someone had a Captain America shield, and you're like, "Here, hold this, so it's covering your costume." Though I didn't quite cover my skirt. You're like, "Just trust me, it's gonna be a cool shot."
Yeah, because it looks like you did something with Captain.
Yes.
There's some crossover going on, and we ain't talking about literary.
Yes. I'm like, okay, so this is a thing. No, I love this shot. Like, that's why when you sent me pictures to choose from, I was like, yep, I'm gonna put that in. A little self-serving. That was my Wonder Woman 1.0. I think that was my first version of Wonder Woman. So next up, D. Tell me who you are, how you got into photography, and also how you got into cosplay photography.
Well, I'm the owner, lead photographer, director, editor, everything for Toy Robot Visual Arts. I got into cosplay photography. I kind of fell into it. We started off, we went to our first con about 10 years ago, and as usual, wherever I go, I have a camera with me. And so I walked in the door with my family and realized that we had found our nirvana among these people. And immediately the camera came out, I started shooting, and it just kind of grew from there. We started, I mean, you leave your first con, and it's like now you're a junkie. You have to find other cons to go to. And
Yes.
So that's what we started doing, is like we were looking for every con we could find. And it just kind of became our thing. I mean, we do other kinds of photography, but con photography and cosplay photography just kind of became the thing that we got associated with. And, so we started going and doing all kinds of con related events, and then hooking up with cosplayers that wanted to do, action photo shoots like the Logan shoot that you showed a picture of a minute ago.
That one is...
That's
it could have been straight out of the movie.
Yeah, that's actually my youngest daughter that's dressed as Laura there. And when we saw the first trailer for the Logan movie, we turned and looked at her and looked back at the trailer, and we're like, we got something here. So we started building that cosplay, and we just so happened to have a really good friend that's an amazing Wolverine cosplayer. And we went out and we did this photo shoot here, and there's a lot of other photos that go along with it, but this one was everybody's favorite that came out of that. But that was another thing that kind of was an offshoot of doing the cosplay photography, is getting together with people and going out and staging shots like this one here. And I love finding actors and actresses like the Ray that you just showed. I mean, this girl right here just really embodies the character. And I love when people see a character that they really identify with and they go all the way with it. I mean, this would have been a loss had this girl not realized that she looked this much like the character and developed a really solid cosplay around it. So I love capturing things like that and being able to hang on to that and to reflect that. And then, of course, little kids that get into it at this age, I mean, you can't not take a picture of that. So.
Right.
But we've developed some really good contacts over the years with people that call us and they say, hey, we've got this event going on here, this event going on there. And we do a lot of traveling to meet up with these folks. And we get invited now to a lot of fundraising events, charity events, things like that, where we show up and shoot all the cosplayers and help kind of share that with their fans, so that their fans can know that these events are going on and contribute to whatever the cause is that they're working for.
That is excellent. All right, so Mark, who are you? How'd you get into photography, and specifically how'd you get into cosplay photography?
Okay. I'm Mark Shafer, and I started collecting comic books when I was about 3 years old. I got into photography when I was about 9 years old. I was in a 4-H photography club. The two hobbies didn't cross over till many, many years later in my adulthood, probably about 2006. I used to go to the comic store, get Wizard magazine. I'd see all these Comic Cons that they were covering, and all these great pics, all these great outfits. And it was like, I want to go, So I went to my very first Comic Con and took my camera with me, started taking pictures, and it wasn't long after that I started posting them on social media. We had, I think Flickr and MySpace were just coming out at that time. And so that's where it kind of took off. And then as social media became bigger and bigger, and more people were getting on it, more people kind of, everybody here will probably agree, the photography game, it just took off. I mean, it got very competitive. It was like the cosplayers finding, the right lighting. I think everybody was really starting to up their game, up their craft, and that's what happened for me. And I still enjoy going to Comic Cons. I'm like a lot of folks, we've been stuck inside for a year and a half now. We're all ready to get out and hang out and see great costumes from all kinds of genres, comic books, steampunk, anime, anything of that nature. So I'm like everybody else. I'm chomping at the bit to get out and start taking pictures again.
I'm ready too. I'm ready. All right. So, what are the tools of the trade? So, what tools do you think are absolutely necessary? Like, Mark, you kind of segged right into it, like almost like you got a cheat sheet ahead of time. What's absolutely necessary for what you do?
I think he's frozen.
I'll start with, obviously you got to have a camera. Digital photography is cheaper, easier to get. I think if you really want to be a good photographer, you also have to know about lighting. And that's the other thing too. Lighting is getting easier, cheaper, more mobile. You've seen me lug around all these big flashes and electronic this and that and the other. That's all going digital.
Oh, Mark, we're losing you. Ooh.
Literally in a little packet the size of a Happy Meal, you can carry a lighting kit.
All right. And what about you, Carlin? What do you think are the tools of the trade?
Well, I mean, as Mark said, you gotta get a camera that you can walk around with. But any camera, it's about developing an eye and understanding light source. I can't tell you how many times you'll start to take a photo and you're like, wait, you're backlit and you're just gonna be a giant shadow. Or, oh wait, that trash can is photobombing the photo. You need to move 2 feet to the right or to the left to, so much of it is about, I mean, there's like you said about the Captain America shield. It's about, a lot of times it's about composition. And I mean, and Mark lugs a lot of stuff around, and I tend to be more of a walk around guy. My favorite lens is a 28 to 70 millimeter, just because it gives me a fairly good range of action, and I don't have to worry about swapping stuff out all the time. So,
That makes sense. And what about you, Dee?
I think a lot of what goes into good cosplay photography is a knowledge of what you're doing. I see a lot of people that are like, well, you must have a nice camera or, something like that. And that's not really what it's about. I mean, you can have a $4,000 camera and still take awful pictures. I've seen a lot of photographers, especially in the con circuit, that think that because they bought an expensive camera, that makes them a photographer. And it really doesn't. We live in a great era where you can go on YouTube and watch videos that will grow your skill exponentially. And I've come across videos every once in a while that completely change my view on photography because I learned something from it that I never thought about before. And if you're not willing to learn, develop, and grow, then basically what's going to happen is 10 years from now, you're still going to be taking pictures that look like the pictures you took 10 years ago. I look at pictures I took 10 years ago and they make me cringe sometimes. And while I would love to be able to look back at everything I've ever done and just love it, I look back at things I did 10 years ago and I'm like, yeah, I kind of want to take that off of my site because I don't think it represents what I do now. So the knowledge of the art and the function of your equipment, and as Carlin said, having a good eye is everything. If you can't look at something and see a way to make it different than the guy that's standing next to you, then you're not really contributing anything. You're just taking another picture. I can't tell you how many times I've been at a con and I find a really cool background and I bring a cosplayer over and I stand them in that background. I take their picture and I walk away and 30 other photographers walk up and start duplicating the shot that I just did because they realize, hey, this is really cool. So now there's 30 shots out there of the same person in the same position that I created, which is fun looking at it and going, hey, look, I did something that these other guys didn't think about. But, it also is a little frustrating when I see that happen. But that being said, having that eye, being able to compose those things, being able to make that person stand out from what's behind them so that it's not just this glob of people. That person is your subject. That cosplayer is what's important. And being able to separate them from the crowd behind them, to me, that's what a cosplayer wants to see in a picture you take of them.
Absolutely. I agree. So, this kind of dovetails nicely into my next question. What advice would you give to someone who wanted to get into cosplay photography? Carlin, do you want to go first?
Sure. Just like anyone that says about writing, you just got to get a camera. And you just get a camera. All three of us have fairly expensive cameras, and over time we've bought different lenses. But Mark and I both have been stopped, and the only option we had at the moment was our cell phone. And we've still pulled off decent photos with our cell phone. And Daryl, I'm sure you have too.
Yep.
But so you just have to start. You have to go out and start shooting. And you need some basic stuff. You need to make sure you need to have a lens cover. A clear or a filtered lens cover to protect your lens. You need to make sure that you've got some basic cleaning equipment because you're walking around. I'll give you an example. I was actually at a church family camp and I went over to take some photos of the kids doing this kickball thing. Well, it turns out it was like this box that simulated a foosball table. But because it's in the dirt and in the earth, it was incredibly dusty. It's like I took those photos and immediately had to go clean the camera. So, you just got to get out and start doing it. The only way you can do it is to take photos and build up the experience. If I went back and looked at some of my earlier photos, just like Daryl said, I'm like, it's like, okay, it's okay. It's a nice documentary of some event of life, but it's not the greatest photo in the world.
That makes sense. Mark, what about you? What advice do you have for someone starting out?
Well, and I'm assuming you want to take good pictures. Nobody wants to take pictures that suck. If you, the principles of good cosplay photography are the same as good photography, period. You don't have to have a super expensive camera. And even with a cell phone, the things that cell phones can do, the iPhone 12 has got, it's a game changer, the camera that's on that. But you need to understand the mechanics of photography. And by that, I mean, understand what makes for good exposure, understand lighting, light sources, that type of thing. And like Dee said, that information is readily available on YouTube, even on Instagram. People will post little snippets of what to do, how they did their shots and stuff. But YouTube is just a wealth of information. I wish that they had that when I was a kid.
I can't imagine how much better I would be right now if we had.
Yeah, I had about 3 or 4 primary photo books. I started out with a Minolta camera, and Minolta came out with a photography guide, and of course I bought it. And then there's a couple other people that had written books on photography, and I bought those. But I mean, it was reading that got me there. It wasn't because YouTube didn't exist. You're exactly right, guys.
Well, I was lucky. There was a photography studio back when people still paid somebody to go take their pictures. Take the family. Everybody dresses up, or you get your senior photos and all that kind of stuff. There was a local photography studio, and they were teaching photography classes. It was like a 9-week course. You come in on Monday nights for like 2 or 3 hours. They would give you a homework assignment, type of picture they wanted you to take, like a long exposure or some type of depth of field or something. And then the next week you would come back. They taught us how to develop film in a film lab. I mean, that's kind of becoming a lost art. And so I was actually lucky to have that kind of access. That, like you, Carlin, I was shooting with a Minolta X1.
I'm jealous. I'm jealous.
Yeah,
you got to take a film class, photography class.
It was worth the money, and it was crazy cheap too. I want to say it was something like $25 or something.
Oh, come on, man.
Yeah, my dad.
I got gypped.
Yeah, so for the princely sum of $50, the two of us, for 9 weeks, we did all kinds of cool stuff. Worked on photography projects and stuff, and so that was where I learned the basics. Again, your lighting, your exposure is, your ISO, your aperture speed, and your shutter speed, and those 3 things make up a pie. And if you learn just even the basic rudiments of that, and you also learn how the camera focuses. The autofocus that's on cameras today is amazing. I mean, when I was a kid, again, back in 05, I don't mean to sound like that guy, but we had to manually focus everything. It was all manual.
Back in 1986.
Yeah, but if you learn that, you really were able. You understood the rudimentary basics here to be able to jump to digital. And digital has opened up such a wide world for everybody. I mean, and with social media, you not only have the tools that are readily available to take great pictures, but you way to share it with the world. Whether Instagram, WhatsApp, Flickr, SmugMug, Facebook. You have all these outlets, Twitter, where you can share your work with people.
I agree. So what advice would you give to cosplayers to help them get the most out of their photo shoots and get the best photos? Like I said, Mark, you took me to school. And thank you again.
Well, some photographers or cosplayers are just naturals. Either they've had some experience at modeling, or they just get in that camera. They got that sass, they bring it. They know, if it's a character who has a signature move. I mean, how many anime, kids have you seen to kind of this,
Yeah.
That's the go-to is, the little, hi. But, if you're directing a photo shoot, it's kind of like directing a movie. I mean, you've got to kind of understand, you need to be able to quickly assess the cosplayer's level of skill. And a lot of folks, they're brand new. They don't know. They spent 12 months working on a costume, and they get to the con. It's like, so sometimes you kind of got to help kind of feel that out, and you got to give them some, some advice. For modeling, again, YouTube is a great source, but modeling is very simple. For guys, basically they have what's called the 2-curve rule, and for ladies they have what's called the 3-curve rule for how you position your body. If you just even understand those 2 basic things, guys, don't curve your body in more than 2 places at one time. Ladies, don't curve your body in more than 3 places at one time. Always be aware of what's called your key light, what the most important light source. Now, again, the rules are meant to be broken, but if you just want to learn something, 2 basic things. One is be aware of what your main source of light is. Your face should always be to that main source of light. And again, ladies, some type of 3-curve pose, whether it's the hips, the knees, the shoulders. Guys, it can be a 2-curve pose, whether it's the hips, the shoulders, or maybe the arm and the shoulders. Carlin's doing his 2-curve pose right now with his neck and his wrist, so Carlin, but yeah, you know, if you know your basics there, just how to that type of stance. Um, and if it were me, if I were a cosplayer, I would say, you know, get in front of the mirror, practice. That's always great. Get in front of the mirror and practice. Get yourself, you know, 2 or 3 what I would call go-to poses, and that just bust out those poses. You know, because again, nowadays with cons, there's lots of people, traffic flowing, everybody's around. You don't have a lot of time. You know, it's like you might hit those 2 or 3 poses. You know, the photographer gets and you're done. Other people are going to want to move in. You know, so that's one of the things you can do. And again, YouTube is your friend. There's all kinds of just quick, easy modeling. Just look up modeling tutorial on YouTube and prepare to drink from the fire hose. You will be overwhelmed.
All right, Carlin, do you want to go next with advice?
I think Mark pretty much covered it. I mean, you know, and sometimes you just got to step up and go, try moving your arm this way. I mean, you know, be open to suggestion and instruction, because if you're, you know, sometimes you'll see people posing up a shot and you're like, oh, if I take it from this angle, it looks kind of creepy. You know, if it's got children in it or something, and you're like, no, we got to repose this. So, you know, just be willing to take some instruction from the guy taking the photo.
Which I think goes into finding a photographer that you can develop a rapport with and trust.
That's true too. It's not a one-way street too. You also, as a photographer, you want input from that character, you know, from that cosplayer. If they tell you that, you know, it's important that forearm's out here because that's his, you know, signature move when he lands on the pavement, you know, listen to him. You know, you know, it's a collaborative thing. That's, you know, I always say there's no big I's, there are no little U's. You know, make sure, especially at like group shoots, you know, hopefully let everybody get some face time. You don't want one person hogging the whole photo shoot, or, you know, where other people aren't getting the shots too. It's like if everybody shows up, everybody should get some face time.
And you were so good at that, Mark.
How many times have we had to shoot the Scooby-Doo gang at Superman Celebration?
Yeah, 100 degrees. Sunlight is very harsh, and it is right overhead. And, you know, that's the other thing. You know, Carlin, you mentioned I lugged around all this equipment because no one ever says, "Oh, Mark, let's take this picture at, you know, 2 hours before sunset." You know, in this nice shady with a breeze type area. It's always like, "Oh, can you come take this picture at, you know, midnight? You know, in the graveyard? You know, and." With no lights, no nothing, you know.
What was the photo shoot you wound up doing at some abandoned house one night? I think with Matt Wagner.
Supernatural.
We did
a different one.
Shoot at a condemned house. It's like, you know, again,
those were awesome.
Let's go to the library where it's air conditioned and take a picture. You know, it's like, let's go to this deserted house that's been condemned. You know, the basement's full of water. The floors are falling in. You know, and hopefully we don't get bitten by anything. And all the neighbors, that was funny. All the neighbors were bringing lawn chairs out and just sitting us, watching us. We were their Saturday night entertainment.
Yeah, you were the nightly entertainment. Daryl, you got anything to add on that one? Any weird?
I did a film shoot that sounds very similar to that. A couple of years back, I was asked to come and I was asked to come and do behind the scenes video, and I ended up being the primary cinematographer on a short film. And we were shooting in an old abandoned drive-in theater concession stand, and the roof was collapsed. There was no power. There was stuff all over the place. We were stepping over broken glass and nails and everything the entire night. So yeah, I can totally relate to the. You know, we're going to find the absolute worst conditions to put people in.
Like, I'm going to need a tetanus
now
shot.
Go. Yeah.
I'm going to need a tetanus shot after this, right?
Exactly. I just kept, you know, I kept waiting to hear stuff, you know, skittering and squeaking behind me, and ended up getting bit by rats or something. But, you know, in the end, it was a fun project. I mean, we must have spent 6 hours in that little building that was about the size of most people's bathrooms, but it was fun. But, you know, it does always seem that when somebody else asks you, come in and take this picture or come in and shoot this footage, they don't have an idea for the conditions that they are asking you to step into. It's always, it's high noon. We're standing out, on the front steps of this building in direct sunlight, in heat. They don't understand all the deals with shadowing and overexposure and everything else that goes along with that. Not to mention trying to get 30 people in this group shoot to all look at you and not squint in the sunlight and everything else. And, if somebody comes to you and says, hey, we'd like to do a group picture, when would be the best time to do it? Then you can lay out your terms. You can say, hey, let's meet at 6:00 this evening. Let's meet over here and let's do that. But nobody ever does that. They always come to you and say, we're going to do this group shoot. We're doing it at noon. Meet us here. And you show up and you just got to kind of, wing it and make the best of it.
Oh, you just made me think of something. Back in the days of film, we typically shot with, say, 1 or 200 or 400 speed film, depending on what we were doing, maybe 1,000 if it was like a real big speed, a sporting event. And, if it was a cloudy day, I'm like, oh, thank God I've got to roll a 200 because, that, and a cloudy day was great because you didn't have that sun glare.
It was like the ultimate diffusion filter.
Yeah.
And for the folks watching, when we talk about the
unlike my light ring hitting my lenses, but hey.
Yeah, your best times for taking pictures at what they call the golden hours, 2 hours after sunrise, 2 hours before sunset. That's your best time. That's when the lighting's the best, unless you live in Alaska and it's 30 days of night. But 2 hours after
vampires.
Sunrise, 2 hours before sunset. Those are your golden hours. That's your best time. If pick up any magazine, I'm going to throw out Sports Illustrated magazine swimsuit issue. Those are either shot 2 hours after sunrise in the morning, 2 hours, before sunset in the evening. That's your golden hour. The light's not too harsh. You get nice side lighting. Everybody looks great. That's if you can get your photographer locked in for that time, grab those time slots. That's when you want to do it, Now, if again, rules are made to be broken. If you're doing some kind of horror, monster, supernatural, something else, obviously you want to shoot it in the dark or at night, after it's already gotten dark. But just in general, your best hours to shoot, your worst times to shoot are at lunchtime outside when it's broad daylight and the sun is very high overhead. Shooting cosplay, a lot of your cosplayers, their costumes, the fabric's going to be spandex, okay? And spandex by nature with that nylon material is very shiny, especially if they're wearing reds, yellows, oranges. The sun, it blows out, it overexposes. And so when you actually get the pictures back, it doesn't even look like there's a color there. The color washes out because it's reflecting sunlight. So if you're wearing spandex, that type of stretchy, shiny fabric, you want to either shoot earlier in the morning, later in the afternoon. And also, as Dee said, you don't want everybody squinting and doing this. It's because that's the other thing that takes a long time to get photos edited. If you're shooting in broad daylight at noon, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, there's almost always somebody squinting, and you've got, if you're lucky, maybe you've got a couple of pictures and you can kind of get swatches where their eyes are open and you can kind of fix it and composite it. But that type of thing, it takes a lot of time, and a lot of people don't realize. Literally, if you're shooting 30 people and it's outside and 6 or 7 of them have their eyes closed, fixing that takes a long time. And that, plus it just, it looks, everybody's sweating, their eyes are closed, a lot of times, most of these outfits are long sleeve, they don't breathe, so that's another thing too. If the sun's not bearing down on costume, it's easier for the costumer because they're not, out there, it's not as hot, at that time of the day.
And of course, everybody always has the same question. Well, can't you just fix it in Photoshop?
Photoshop, yes.
Apparently, you put a picture in Photoshop and boom, it's fixed.
Yeah,
I get that a lot. We'll take pictures and I'll say, hey, we've got this condition that's here or that condition that's here. Let's do. Well, can't you just fix it in Photoshop? Or somebody feels like their appearance is not what it should be. They gained weight through COVID or whatever, and they're like, well, can you like take some weight off of me or what? It's like, I can do a certain amount of that, but don't put that expectation on me. Uh, I'm the photographer. I am recording what's in front of me. I'm not necessarily here to make you into something that you're not.
You're not a
I'm
wizard.
photographer,
Yeah,
not a
exactly.
magician. Yeah.
I had a photo shoot that I did a few years ago with a roller derby group, and a couple of them got really mad at me because I didn't take weight off of them and I didn't fix their hair. They were literally coming in to do their photos after practicing for 2 hours. And they would take off
Wow.
their helmets and not brush their hair. Their faces were all splotchy and red, and they had this expectation that I was just going to fix that. And
That's
no, I'm not. I'm you know, I can do a certain amount of filtering, I can do a certain amount of cleanup, but I'm not going to take someone that looks like a disaster and make them look like somebody else just because, you know, that was their expectation. I can't do that.
Right.
like, yeah, I'll just take your head and paste it on someone else's body.
Yeah, or I'll just go to, you know, some fashion magazine, cut out a model's face and stick it on yours.
Yeah, and that's
Oh, go ahead.
Photoshop. You can do a certain amount in Photoshop. That is true. And given enough time, you can do a lot of stuff in Photoshop. But again, you know, these pictures that you see that wind up on magazine covers and stuff, that didn't happen in 1 hour, 5 hours, 10 hours. You know, they'll spend a week of retouching. I mean, it's very complicated. So there's only so much you can do. And again, like I said, if somebody's got, you know, maybe a loose hair or something, you can fix it. You know, if there's a little bit of sweat stains or something, the minor stuff you can fix. If I see cigarette butts on the ground around, sometimes I'll airbrush them out just because I'm not OCD, I'm CDO. That's like OCD, but the letters are in alphabetical order like they're supposed to be, you know. But yeah, there's almost so much cheating. Yeah, you might can slim somebody a little bit, but again, what the rule is that as far as weight, you can't go more than 5%. And so keep the math clean. If somebody weighed 100 pounds, you could take 5 pounds off of them maybe before it starts to. That's the whole thing. If you're doing photoshopping and stuff, you want it to look real, look natural. You know,
Right.
now it's got where people are so crazy with these filters and stuff that they put on cameras. You know, it's like they get out their phone. I can take a picture with it, and everything else blurry. They look like a cartoon. They've got deer horns. You know, it's crazy. And it's like, no, trust me, that's it too much.
Well, I think
you only want to put a little gas on it, not full mustard. That then.
I think that
again, it's one of the things. Little touches here and there. Don't overdo it.
I think one of the problems that photographers are running into nowadays is these photo apps where people can filter themselves and people convince themselves that this looks natural. You know, when they put that up as their social media profile picture, they are obviously convinced that this looks natural, and everybody else is looking at it going, no, not so much. So they kind of have that expectation of photographers when we take their picture that we're going to do a certain level of filtering and cleaning up. And to be honest with you, if I'm doing a con, I don't have a reason to go and take all of my pictures of the cosplayers and do a bunch of cleanup work on them. I might throw a color pop filter on it or, you know, add a little bit here and there, but I don't feel that it's the job of the cosplay photographer at a live event, especially, to go in and change the appearance of the people that I'm taking pictures of. Now, if I'm doing a individual photo shoot and that person has certain things that they would like me to clean up a little, we can do that. You know, I've got a great art director. My wife handles a lot of the art direction in the pictures that we take. And she goes in and she'll clean up things on a photo shoot that we've done. But if I'm at a con and I'm taking your picture, I'm really not going to go in and do anything that's going to make you, yeah, that's her. I'm not going to go in and do anything that makes you look all that different, because to me, at a con event, capturing a cosplayer in that costume, that's what that person wants. That's what they are representing. And it's not on me as a photographer to change you or your appearance. If you're dressed as Iron Man, I'm not going to cut out your face and put Robert Downey Jr.'s face on top of that. I want a picture of you as Iron Man. So I'm not going to go in and make a bunch of changes that make you look like somebody else. Now, if you're a little heavy set, we're doing a photo shoot and you need me to trim a little bit off, we can do that, but not at a live event.
Right.
And
Too
that
much makes it obvious, and then you don't want that either, you know.
Yeah, and it just starts to look ridiculous after a while.
Yeah, and that kind of dovetails into a question that was in our private chat. If you have any advice for plus size cosplayers, and personally, I think cosplay is for everyone, every size. But any advice for them and how they should approach photo shoots?
Is this for? Did you say plus size?
Plus size cosplayers,
right.
like, yeah. What advice do you have?
Primarily,
go ahead.
Primarily, dress for your own level of confidence. Don't overshoot your confidence because you like this particular character, but then once you get the costume on, suddenly you're self-conscious, because that is going to reflect in the pictures. If you are scared of the people that are walking by looking at you, if you're scared of that attention, if you're concerned about what people are thinking, that reflects in your face in the pictures, and it's going to show. So choose something that makes you feel good about yourself. You know, if you are a larger person, maybe don't wear a spandex costume. Maybe find a version of this character you identify with that's a little more clothed, a little more covered, and it's a little more flattering to your particular body style. Because if not, you're going to spend the entire day walking around tugging at your clothes and doing adjustments and covering up. And you can tell in someone's posturing what they're uncomfortable about. If you know you don't like your bust line, in every picture you're standing with your arms crossed like this, it becomes obvious. So number one is dress for your own personal confidence, and don't go beyond that. Don't overshoot that.
And I'll say that, you know, as a photographer, you know, if you're experienced and you're taking somebody, and here's the thing, not everybody has 3% body fat. Look at me, I certainly don't, you know. I'm a big person, but I can say this, if you're photographing somebody who may be a little bit larger, maybe they got a little extra weight in the stomach, maybe they got a little extra weight in the hips, maybe they got a little weight under the chin. There are flattering poses. That's part of the deal. There are certain ways you can position somebody and pose them. Again, a good rule of thumb here is the part of your body that is the closest to the camera is what's going to look the biggest, you know. And for a while there, everybody was doing the shot, and we called it the boot, you know, where they're sitting on the steps. And they got one leg out way in front, and their boots out, and they're you know, and their foot looks like it's as big as a tree trunk, and the rest of it looks a little tiny. And like I said, everybody was doing that. I think the Gap started it with, and then all the cosplayers were doing this close. Whatever part of your body is closest to the camera is going to appear the biggest. So maybe if you've got a little weight around the midsection, you know, back up, lean into the camera, you know, make whatever the biggest part is, put it the furthest from the camera, and that makes it a little more flattering. And again, that comes with practice and kind of tweaking it and stuff. And again, lighting. You can use lighting. Lighting is a good friend. Lighting and shadow. Shadows hide a lot. So depending on what you're doing, you can use your light to help look somebody, you know, look more flattering. You know, you can use light to sculpt the face, light to sculpt the features. And again, that it involves either being really keenly aware of your surrounding light or bringing your own light with you. But that's something else. You know, don't be afraid to tell the photographer, hey, you know, I'm a little more conscious about this or whatever, you know, because I'm not going to go to you and say, you know, maybe we should do this. You know, I don't want to scare somebody off from being themselves, you know, but again, just, you know, it's a collaborative effort. Try something, you know, that's more flattering for the person. Try lighting that's flattering. And usually I can tell you this, again, I'm a photographer, not a magician. You know, I can't make 50 pounds disappear, but I can make 15 or 20. And then with you know, Adobe, you know, that magical sauce that you rub on stuff in digital, you can do stuff with that as well, you know, a certain amount. But again, it's like Dee was saying, you know, it's very time consuming to do that, and you can't do that for everybody. Now, if it's, especially run and gun photography at a con. Now, if it's one of those things where you've kind of worked this out, maybe behind the scenes on Facebook, texting, whatever, saying, hey, let's go meet over by this really cool statue at 4:00 in the afternoon. It's our photo shoot. It's our time. We've got, obviously you're in control of the lighting and everything. You kind of know what you're doing. You're familiar with the situation. And you can do a lot more, when you're on your own home turf. Where it gets dicey is where people, again, when you're at a convention, maybe a city you've never been to before, and it's like, oh, come get a picture of me over here next to the traffic, or, oh, here, let's go into this abandoned factory that, with the roof falling in and take a picture. I've had that done, be cognizant of that too. I'll throw that as a safety tip. I know that's off topic here, and I'm trying to throw a lot out there, but don't ever put your cosplayer in some type of situation where they're in danger. Don't ask them to climb something, or, oh, hey, get over there next to those downed electrical cables. That'll really look cool. Don't do that, So
going off of something that Mark said about what the cosplayers are comfortable with. If I'm doing a one-on-one shoot with somebody, one of the first things that I'm going to ask them is, what are you happiest with about your appearance, and what do you absolutely hate about your appearance? And instead of me saying, geez, you got a big butt, don't you? That gives them the chance to say, I mean, I've shot a young lady that has a big butt, and she's very proud of it. And she wants that in her pictures, whereas somebody else with the same physique might absolutely hate that.
Maybe got back.
Yeah, so it gives them the opportunity to say, well, look, I've got a big butt and I really like it. Or, my husband really likes my big butt, so I want that in the pictures. But I have really small boobs, so, if you can stay away from this and then feature this, and then that way I'm not the bad guy by coming up and suggesting one thing or another, and then maybe getting it wrong. It's like walking up to a woman and going, so what do you do? And she's like, well, I'm not pregnant. So, it's the same kind of situation. So let them express what they're happy with, what they're unhappy with, and then work around that.
That is really good advice.
I think Mark's wrong about the electrical wires. I think that's all kinds of fun.
I want that on video, though. I don't want just pictures of it.
Remind me not to do a one-on-one shoot with you, Carlin. That sounds dangerous.
Here, hold this rusty cable. It's raining.
10 feet, 10 stories down.
Do you have
stick your tongue on it.
Do you have disclaimers that you have people sign that or waiver forms?
I would if I did that.
Smart
but
man.
Did you die?
John knew you were going to say something like that. Well, we are running low on time because I want to try to get us back on track, and I'm out of my questions now. Do you all have anything else? Any other tips you want to share? Any other stories you want to share before we wind down with our panel?
I'd just like to throw in that along with doing cosplay photography, don't forget to do just some good documentational photos. I mean, it's always nice to take a photo of that awesome cupcake. Sissy's Sweet Shop. Come on. I mean, how many people haven't been to Sissy's Sweet Shop? Okay. And if you're not taking a photo of that latte and that cookie, you're doing something wrong.
Agreed.
I see a lot of people like in social media groups that are always asking questions about, well, how do I get started in this? How do I get started in that? And I feel like a lot of times the question actually means, how do I jump from where I am to where you are now? But the answer to the question to me of how do I get started in something like cosplay photography or whatever is, go to a con and take cosplay pictures. That's your start right there. Yep. Whatever equipment you have, don't ask me what camera to buy. Don't ask me what lens to buy. Take what you have, go to an event and take pictures, then go home and give yourself an honest critique, and then go back to another one and do it again, taking the time to better what you did last time. That's how you start in anything, whether it's cosplay photography, whether it's pinup photography, whether it's filmmaking. Go out and shoot some pictures, shoot some film, edit, repeat.
And we're an incredibly inexpensive age to do this. I mean, because
Absolutely.
you take 10 photos and you can delete 7 that are crap, and you've got 3 that are decent. And the little lighting circle that I've got on me right now, one of my a sister-in-law bought it for my daughter for like $40 at a Walmart. I mean, Carlin has licked live wires.
That explains a lot.
Okay, that is my former roommate. Probably one of my best. He's one of my best buds.
Yeah, he's heckling you.
Yeah, Mongo, I will throw an Oreo at you. Do not choke.
And the Crayley half of Phoenix Sisters also wants to thank you guys for joining us. So, hi, Crayley. What about you, Mark? Anything else? Any other things you want to share?
Nope. Well, I guess I'll say this. If you see other photographers at conventions, it doesn't hurt to go up and ask questions. Most of us are fine with asking questions. I have people asking me all the time, what kind of camera settings are you using? What are, and geez, how far back are you standing? Where would you put these people? I don't have a problem. It's not, I don't do this for a living. And there's nothing wrong with charging for photography, but again, for me, it's a hobby. So I just do it for fun. So, I don't have any problems, answering questions, sharing with people, and I can't see who's all on, but, hit me up on Facebook if you have questions. If I know it, I'll answer it. If I don't, I'll make up something that sounds official, so.
And I agree, Dave Mattingly. Plus size is beautiful. I follow some amazing plus size cosplayers, and some of them are my favorite cosplayers. So before I
do you have the photo of Charlie bowling in the Superman suit?
Oh no, I didn't preload that.
Okay.
I'm
Didn't preload
sorry.
That one? All right.
Yeah, I was.
That was a great moment to capture.
It was. I'll throw it up on the Phoenix Sisters Facebook page, just kind of as a follow up. Where can we find you guys? Where can people find your work and follow you and interact with you? Carlin, where can they find you?
They can find me on Facebook
Under your name. All right.
Pretty unique name.
D, I'm going to save you for last because you have the longest spiel. Mark, where can they find you?
Mark Shafer on Facebook and mark.shafer on Instagram. So.
All right. And D, not only can they find your photos, but I also want you to plug your show.
All right. So you can find Toy Robot Visual Arts on Facebook, on Instagram, and on YouTube. On YouTube, we have some of our short film projects and the commercial projects and things like that we do. You can find me as Geek Gumshoe on Instagram and on the Back of the Cereal Box Network. It's a noir style show where I look at paranormal cases and kind of evaluate the so-called evidence that's presented in those. We are going to be in Arkansas this weekend at the Saline County, I think it's Saline County Comic Expo or something like that. We're going to be there shooting cosplayers for the first time in over a year. So we're absolutely stoked about being able to go and do that. That's going to be so much fun. But just go find us on all those social media. Also, my band, the Murdering Crows, are getting ready to drop our CD that we've been working on for the last 2 years. That's coming up. And I think Monday the 21st on the Back of the Cereal Box Network, we're going to be doing a live listening party where we're going to play every track on the album and taking comments about it and hearing what people have to say.
That is excellent. Thank you all for being here, and everyone follow them. You guys are great. I'm going to kick you out now and do my spiel and bring in Johnny for his panel. So thank you. Love you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Bye.
Thanks. All right. So real quick, I just want to okay, let me find it. I just want to thank all the podcasts that have made this convention possible and This convention is also a fundraiser, so I'm going to play this video.
This convention is also a fundraiser for the Actors Fund. The Actors Fund fosters stability and resiliency and provides a safety net for performing arts and entertainment professionals over their lifespan. You can support the Actors Fund by following the link below and donating. Every donation also enters you into our sweepstakes and gives you a chance to win these fantastic prizes.